Abolitionist Movement by Tommy Livesay. Throughout the 1800s, a new type of reform was occurring. This reform would change the nation forever. This is the Abolitionist Movement. Its point was to abolish slavery. There was a huge push during these years, yet at the same time there was a huge opposition. This important sequence of events would climax in a civil war. This movement consisted of many leaders. These men and women were important figures, but other people, like writers, were just as influential. During the early 1800s, the American Colonization Society was formed. Its goal was to free slaves and bring them back to Africa, mainly to a colony named Liberia. Starting with William Lloyd Garrison, an important abolitionist leader, people began to realize that this was not working. The Liberator, one of the first abolitionist papers, was founded by Garrison. He once said, "I'll be as harsh as uncompromising justice. On this subject, I do not wish to think or speak or write with moderation. I'm in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." Garrison's voice of immediate emancipation was heard by all. After him, many other abolitionists came and supported his ideas. Frederick Douglass, an escaped slave, fled to the North and became an important abolitionist. He impressed many Northerners with his eloquent speeches and impactful writing. He lectured on freedom and started a newspaper in Rochester, New York. This paper was known as the North Star because slaves that were escaping had to follow the North Star to freedom to the northern states and Canada. Douglass once said, "The object of the North Star will be to attack slavery in all its forms and aspects, advocate universal emancipation, exalt the standard of public morality, promote the moral and intellectual improvement of the colored people, and hasten the day of freedom to the 3 millions of our enslaved fellow countrymen." Now we come to the question, was slavery to remain, or is it a horrible wrong and must be ended? The truth, as we all know, is that slavery is a horrible act and must be demolished. While we know this now, many people in the past did not. Most Southerners thought it was a part of themselves and their way of life. Some Northerners felt threatened, and many whites thought that slaves would be better off in their care than free. While slavery had been accepted for many years, the age of reform helped some Americans to realize their wrong. Sojourner Truth, an escaped slave, became an important abolitionist. She was involved in moral reform and saw that these things were wrong. She was an impactful speaker. With the help of these abolitionists, the American Anti-Slavery Society was founded, and opposition to slavery continued to grow. With the help of escaped slave Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad was created to help slaves and give hope to many enslaved blacks. One may wonder what caused this sudden turn of reform. It becomes clear when one would read American Slavery as It Is by Theodore Weld. Books like this one show how slavery was in that time. When many people learned of what was happening, people began to fight slavery even more. Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, was an extremely influential writer who allowed many people in the United States to learn what happened in slave states. Books like these began to split the nation. Slave owners thought of slaves not as people, but as property, like an ox or horse. Abolitionists stood by their beliefs that all men were created equal. As opposition to abolitionism grew violent, people responded on both sides. John Brown was an abolitionist who could no longer wait for agreement. As pro-slavery mobs burned Elijah Lovejoy's press for the 4th time and killed him, Brown took matters into his own hands. With 21 men, he raided an armory in an attempt to arm slaves. When his raid failed and he was captured, John Brown was hung for his beliefs. On the night before he was hung, Brown said, "I, John Brown, am quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood." As more people took sides, it began to split the nation. While slavery had economic advantages, many Americans realized the Southerners' sins. These slave owners were simply stubborn and would not relinquish this injustice. It is clear that slavery had to be abolished as fast as possible.